back, Billiken fans. It's Zach Miller, Peter Hale. This is the Midtown Madness Podcast. Before we get going, if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button for me. This episode and the whole season of the Midtown Madness Podcast is brought to you by Two Men in a Garden. Not only is it Billiken season, but as we head further into fall, and I got my home field hoodie on because it's fall in St. Louis. The NFL season is back, so is college football, and salsa goes great with football on a Sunday or Saturday. Whether you like it mild or hot, chunky or cantina style, people over at Two Men have you covered. You can pick up their many products at any local grocery stores or online at twomeninthegarden.com. Follow them on all social at Two Men Salsa on Instagram and Twitter. Pete, as noted by a few Billiken Internet users, with the Cardinals' departure from the MLB postseason, it's officially Billiken basketball season.
Yeah, that's right. And I think probably we're all in agreement that happened a little earlier than we'd like, a little faster and less storybook ending than we would have preferred to happen. I don't know if you watched the Cardinals game this weekend, but either of them, but they were not great.
I did, and I think I realized that baseball is the most frustrating thing to watch. Because I like when your team is not hitting. When your team's not hitting, it's the most annoying sport to watch.
Yeah.
I went out to Soulard last night to watch that game, and I mean I literally I haven't watched a single regular season game that I haven't attended in like 15 years, and a full one. And I'm sitting there yelling at the TV. I don't know. Like, it's insane. But, we have a ton to talk about Billiken-wise. A lot of Billiken stories in the media. Speaking of media, A10 Media Day is coming up. We have all the details on that. A couple of new offers out. Men's and women's soccer are, of course, in the midst of A10 conference play. So without further ado, let's get rolling, Pete.
Yeah, let's do it. Zach, it looks like they had a special, like a public speaker come in and talk to the men's and women's basketball teams.
Yeah, this was interesting and didn't get a lot of note on around, I guess, the conversation among Billiken fans. Kevin Eastman came in, who I don't know much about, but he came in and spoke to the men's and women's basketball team this week. Pete, tell me a little bit about Kevin Eastman.
Yeah, so the thing that he's become a public speaker after kind of retiring from coaching. But I think most recently people would probably know him. He was an assistant with the LA Clippers, and before that, he was a longtime assistant for the Boston Celtics, including their 2008 season when they won an NBA title. Now, he's got a really long coaching career. He was a head coach out at Washington State after coaching at UNC Wilmington and Belmont Abbey. So not to be confused with the version of today's Belmont. But he's also been an assistant at Tulsa, Richmond, VCU, Colorado State. He played back at Richmond in the 70s, super long basketball coaching career. And now he's gotten into public speaking. And it seems like both teams took away a lot of lessons from this, just his experience, what it takes to win. And, great to see them get this kind of, I don't know, preseason inspiration interaction.
Always good for, I think, teams to get fresh perspectives. I'm sure
That's right.
Day to day, they're hearing Tillett harping on things. They're hearing Travis Ford harp on things. So it's good to get an alternative perspective. It's like when your parent tells you something all the time, and then like somebody who's like closer to your age that you look up to, that's not a parental or an authority figure, tells you the same thing, you finally believe it. So I think this is a similar kind of deal. Some scenes came out of Chaffetz. Besides this Kevin Eastman gentleman, men's and women's basketball photo shoots took place, and I'm assuming that includes the intro video shoot as well.
Yeah, these look incredible. You head to both of the men's and women's official social media accounts to get a look at these. And I don't know if these are just kind of the previews or what, but they went all out with the production value on these, preseason kind of team hype videos and shots this season. They look fantastic. Fog, low lighting, kind of blue lighting. It looks really cool.
Yeah, of course, Chap Daddy had to needle me in text message about one of the shots because he knows how much I love a certain phrase. But yeah, I thought they're great again. It's so cool. I get hyped up. These are one of the things that the parts of my Billiken fandom that I really get into. That, the video production, the hype stuff, the fan interaction is really where I kind of is my bread and butter as far as what interests me.
Well, it just one more point on that. It's not just that. The players love this stuff. Like the players absolutely love this stuff.
There's a reason they do photo shoots when a player comes on campus for an official visit.
Oh man, I mean,
I get excited after a race when the race photos are posted.
That's right. I mean, they have these for life now. I mean, I don't have anything comparable to this in my entire life. There's no shot of me looking cool anyway.
Here's what we need to do. We need to do a Midtown Madness photo shoot. I think is this the second episode in a row we've discussed?
In a row. Yeah, I mean, it seems like
I think we have to now.
We're speaking this into existence. Yeah. I mean, if maybe there's a way to make this look cool, but if not, then we need to
if one of the Neisler boys is listening, we'll hire you we need to do a photo shoot sometime in the midst of winter. Men's basketball on an A10 scale. A10 Media Day will be held October 13th at Barclays Center, Pete.
It's coming up. I mean, that's this week. And they're going to broadcast it on ESPN Plus, too.
Yeah. Mike Corey's going to be the host. Getting right to the point, Travis Ford has a noon time slot. It appears they did this in alphabetical order, with the noon slot going to Fran Dunphy, Archie Miller, and Travis Ford. So make sure it's perfect time for, actually, I probably have that wrong. It's probably 11 a.m. Central Time, because I just literally copy and pasted, and I forgot that coming up from the A10 website that it would be Eastern Time. So
yeah, you're right. That would be 11 in St. Louis.
Yeah. Talk about this closed door scrimmage, because we haven't.
It seems like these are becoming more and more common every year, and there's actually a website now that's devoted to just listing all of them. But we've got one on the 29th of October against Bradley, and that's kind of an interesting date because you would think it would be before we go in front of the public for the first time, which will be the 24th against UMSL. But instead, it's in between UMSL and the first regular season game against Murray State. So that's October 29th against Bradley again. I believe it will be in St. Louis, if I'm not mistaken.
And Travis mentioned that this exhibition game against UMSL, I think it was on the Cusimano show. Mm-hmm. He mentioned that this UMSL scrimmage is the earliest game he's ever scheduled.
It really is. I mean,
it's almost parallel with the Blues starting playing. I can't remember it being so close.
I mean, when you look at it is from when this episode releases Monday morning on the 10th, it is 2 weeks from today, which is incredible. But it's also incredible because it's 2 weeks before the regular season. That's a lot of time. Yeah. So getting this to break that up on the 29th, I think is pretty key to get some good game action against a D1 team. We've done this in the past.
We were introduced to it back in the Majerus era, I feel like.
I want to say Memphis in the Majerus era was the first one that I can think of.
And they talked a lot about that because, Majerus he preferred practice to games. So these scrimmages aren't necessarily full 40-minute games. Sometimes they're longer. Sometimes they're, 20-minute or 15-minute halves with, 10 minutes of, game scenario specific setups. So interesting, I think. I think it's kind of what do you think coaches really get out of it?
Well, I mean, it's just another for us. It's the first chance to see kind of where we stand against a D1 competition. I mean, yes, you're not in front of fans. The lights aren't all the way up. You know, you're not on TV. Like in Majerus's case, you know, you are going to probably stop it every once in a while on your own to kind of take a teaching time out here and there.
And point your
Yeah,
middle finger horizontally.
yeah, and maybe that's right. He did do that, and then yeah, that's funny. Um, and yeah, I mean, it's a chance to get some good some practice film or like
Yeah.
quasi game film to break down with your players. There's a lot of benefits to doing it. I think the coaches are going to kind of agree to terms with kind of how they're going to run it. It's probably not going to be a pure 20-minute halves. They're going to probably do it a little bit differently. But regardless, I think it's a nice thing to have, especially given the timing. 2 weeks between your exhibition game and your first regular season game is too much.
Yeah, I think these things came along with the abolition of the All-Star teams. They used to, the athletes in action that we talked about with Highmark. I can't remember. There was a couple other ones too, but yeah, that when they did away with those, teams started looking for ways to get more game, kind of game scenario. I don't know. You know what I'm trying to say. Anyway, more Billikens in the media. Rothstein shouts out Javon Pickett.
He shows up on his 25 under the radar transfers for the 2022-2023 season. And I think that is fair. That's a kind of a fair categorization for Pickett because there have been so many hype transfers in other places, especially at the dawn of the NIL era and some of the most notable transfer, NIL situations like Nigel Pack and guys like that. But what he said about Pickett was a double-figure scorer last season at Missouri. Pickett opted to stay in state and transfer to St. Louis in hopes of being part of one of the deepest perimeters in the sport. He'll join a tough nucleus of guards that already features Yuri Collins, Fred Thatch, Gibson Jimerson, and Javonte Perkins. In his little minute and a half video, he used that exact phrasing, a tough nucleus that St. Louis returns. He's all about our returners, that kind of top six or so.
And nobody, he I think is the antidote, and we have gone back and forth about Rothstein and
Yes.
kind of his memification of things, but he's really the one person in the media that's actually made a point to be like, hey, look, like SLU's got a bunch of people coming back, including Javonte Perkins.
That's
like
right.
Everyone else is kind of just ignoring the idea that we have players coming back, and we're in, and they're even ignoring the fact that Perkins was out last season. Like I think a lot of people are like, yeah, it's the same team from last year. Like, yeah, we have a ton of returners. We've added a transfer. We've added a pseudo transfer in Javonte Perkins.
Yeah, and like not only are they forgetting that he's coming back and what he was.
Don't forget about Jay.
He was the preseason conference player of the year. I mean, like this wasn't just some dude. And it's amazing. It's just amazing to me how short memories are in sports. And you and I know as well as anyone, Dayton and VCU fans both think it's them in the conference this season, as if we're returning the exact same team as like Dayton is returning almost the exact same team that they had last season. They've got 11 sophomores. It's ridiculous. But they're treating us like we're the same thing. And I just can't understand how you can just kind of forget about Perkins like that. And just overlook the impact that Pickett is going to have. I mean, everybody's talking about him as the number 5 or 6 guy, along with Thatch, and his impact is just going to be huge. Not to mention Sincere Parker. That's the other thing. Is like,
and we're going to get to that next.
Yeah, we are. It's just incredible to me. Like I think we've added so many really crucial pieces.
Yeah, I mean, he thinks even I still think he's a little bearish on the Billikens because in his preseason rankings, he has us outside the top 30.
Yeah, number 32, and he did the pull quote I have from this, in addition to,
and it's a good pull quote.
His nucleus comment. St. Louis has a chance to be the best non-power conference team not named Gonzaga. And I think that's probably true. I think because, I broke this down a few weeks ago, much to the chagrin of VCU and Dayton fans, really Dayton fans, and then VCU fans injecting themselves into the conversation. But we have
They're
more
like me at a party.
we have more upside than Dayton. We kind of know who Dayton is. And even if we assume the way that they are, that every single one of last year's freshmen is going to get incrementally better as a sophomore, because that always happens in every sport all the time. Um,
Ask
Saint,
Blues fans about Clem Costin.
we have added pieces that they have not. They've got a transfer, they've got a freshman who they're really high on. Fine. But we've added, got like more experienced game ready
Known
guys.
quantities. Javon Pickett, Javonte Perkins. And I mean, Sincere Parker's like 75% unknown quantity.
I cannot wait for Parker to go out there and surprise people. I cannot wait.
I think you're more bullish on Parker than I am.
I am.
Not that I'm bearish on him, and that's the second time I've said that word in the last minute. But an article came out from Stu Durando on STL Today, and it's basically kind of a profile of Sincere Parker in a way of his game and what he expects to bring to the Billikens this year.
A lot of the focus of this article was on him being a more disciplined shooter than he was in JUCO, about how he probably had too much freedom at Moberly and how that led to too many bad shots. But when you actually look at his numbers there, he wasn't a bad shooter. He was, I would say, he was an efficient scorer. So if he's focused on being even more efficient, smarter, taking better shots, he knows he's going to be shooting a lot less. He's acknowledged that. To me, that is such a big deal, because he's already a natural scorer. Ford has said time and time again, he's going to be playing because of his scoring, but we're a little, his defense has to get there. Parker even told that to us when we had him on the show. He was kind of like, my coach is always on me about I can be the best, as good a defender as I want to be, and that he admitted, like, I don't always want to be. And I thought, the fact that Ford has brought this up so many times now, he's publicly telling Parker, I want to play you as much as possible, but you got to get your defense there. It was a great article. And I mean, Zach, I mean, like, even Perkins had things to say about him.
Yeah, Perkins, I mean, he reminds me of myself in my younger days, is what he said. It kind of, I'm trying to stay grounded on that, because you get in the culture, especially like the basketball culture, the Instagram, the social media, you get that's my nephew, that's my little brother, like,
Sure.
So there is a lot of that hyperbole when it comes to like your friends or your teammates. So I don't, I try to stay a little grounded when it comes to, especially with Yuri Collins has done it before on social media about, I don't remember who he's talking about, but yeah, I'm just trying to, or maybe it was Cian Medley. And he was hyped up Cian Medley. So I try to stay grounded when it comes to player to player.
Sure. Yeah, sure. I thought it was an interesting perspective, though.
It is.
He speaks as if he's like 45 or something like that, first of all, which I love. And
he's getting there.
But he was in JUCO a couple of years ago,
Yes.
He's what, maybe not even 3 years older than Parker. But
who's going to graduate college younger, him or me?
But this is one of those things, like, we're going to have 2 more years of Parker after this year.
Yeah.
And this to me is the on-ramp of him showing us flashes of what he can do, coming in and contributing,
learning.
He
doesn't have the pressure on him. He has no pressure.
He's going to be the 7th or 8th guy. The pressure on him is to get his defense there, because next year he is going to be the guy who's going to be scoring. Perkins isn't going to be here anymore. He's probably going to be a starter next year. He's going to be relied on for a heavy scoring load. So I just think that's I just think like I'm so excited for this season. I'm not saying he's going to be like a 20-point scorer or anything like that. I just really love what he brings. And when Javonte Perkins or Gibson Jimerson's out and he's in, I don't think we're losing as much scoring punch as a lot of people will assume. And that is so key.
Yes. Yeah, I mean that's kind of the thing, right? Like, as much as the offense stagnates when Yuri Collins exits the game, um, now if Jimerson or Perkins get into foul trouble, I mean we're fine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pickett, Parker, we got a lot of P's on this team.
We do. Yeah.
Um, Larry Hughes II got himself an article as well. He's got a chip on his shoulder. Pete, talk about this article a bit.
Yeah, he does. And it's an article. If you know anything about him and his dad and their story and SLU, there's not a whole lot here that's super surprising. It's going to be about identity and legacy. Those are kind of the two big key words from this article. As his dad, Larry Hughes, who we all know, puts it in the article. Yeah, maybe you've heard of him. He said it's not about what I did when I was there at SLU. It's about adding positive to what's already there. Being a good student, good player, good kid. He really wants his son to forge his own identity. We all know, as they both know and have acknowledged, Larry was a 5-star all everything player coming out of high school who had his choice of schools, was going to have he was going to the pros pretty soon. We all knew it. That isn't what's going on here. Larry Hughes Jr. has a chance to be a really good college player. He's a good student. He can be a good teammate. They know he's not going to play a whole lot this season, but it's going to be interesting, Zach, to see if he becomes a scholarship player and how fast and how this all goes at SLU, because I'm so curious to see how he develops and what his career can be.
I'm interested to see where his role starts even.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I mean, I think the ceiling is as high as he kind of wants it to be from what people are saying about him.
And I think back to, like, you don't have to go very far back in SLU to a time when he would have been a very, very exciting scholarship player coming on this roster. Like, think about those cruise teams after.
I don't want to.
He may have been the best incoming player in any of those classes. And now he's a walk-on, to just give you an idea of the depth of talent that we have this season. It feels like this is not your typical walk-on. This is not your father's walk-on. I mean, this is
our first legacy since Electafeld.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, I mean it's wild. That shocks me, I think. But then again, we haven't had we haven't really had much continuity, I guess, with coaches.
Right. That's part of it.
New offers out, Pete, and they're both from the Skill Factory.
They are, and we talked about last week. We offered a guy, Lathan Somerville, out of the Skill Factory, a Peoria guy who mostly grew up in Europe and is now in Georgia at this prep school. Now we offered his teammate Jeremiah Wilkinson, who's a 6'2", 2024 combo guard. He's kind of a quick, athletic guard who can score and pass, always moving downhill, always attacking the basket, explosive finisher, and a really aggressive on-ball defender. I really like the film on this kid. He looks good. He's one of these guys who I think he's really got potential to be a great 4-year college guard. The other offers he's got right now, pretty big range. He's got Florida, Ole Miss, Murray State, Georgia State, Kennesaw State, Stephen F. Austin, and Jacksonville State. So he's in a pretty good situation as a 2024, couple SEC offers in there. Nice prospect. The other one is really interesting. He's a 2023 prospect, and his name is Bruce. Forgive
Zhang.
my
Is it Zhang?
That's how I would put it. Zhang. He's Chinese. He's a 7'1", 255-pound center, also at the Skill Factory right now. He just joined Twitter a few weeks ago, basically, and SLU is the only offer that I can find any evidence of. He's, like I said, he's from China, and it looks like this is his first semester in the States. So he's freshly here just in the last couple months, and there's very little information on him. I did find a Chinese tweet that I translated, so forgive the rough translation and again my pronunciation, but it says Zhang Chen Zhifeng, a 7-1 center out of Shenzhen Gymnasium to Tsinghua University and Tsinghua University, I guess where he played and went to school. Born in 2003, he seems to be studying at the Skill Factory, and his English name is Bruce. He's not the athletic type, but he's tall, solid under goal player. Going to college in America? Question mark. And that's where it ends. So they're saying he's not very athletic, but he's got a good size and he's a good at the basket player who might be going to the NCAAs. A reply to this tweet said he'd do a prep year there at the Skill Factory and return because he signed with a pro team and can't play in college. But that has to be wrong. There's no way if SLU would have offered him if that was the case. And I honestly think that Chinese tweet, is harsh on him because from the video I could find, which is just a couple clips, he moves really well. It showed him operating in the mid range. He can put it on the floor, got some spin moves. He looks pretty strong too. Like he took some banging, physically. So this is a really interesting one, and it's another. We've already got Brock Weiss committed, but it's another big man in 2023. So it's kind of showing their hand a little bit about maybe what they want to do with that last on paper scholarship in this class.
Yeah, I love that he took an American name too, like the international students when they'd come into SLU.
Yeah,
And they're always interesting names because I don't think they really have a frame of reference for the name, culturally, I guess. It's like Bruce, like nobody's been named Bruce. No, there have been no baby Bruces since like the 70s, I think.
yeah, it's a dying name for sure.
The Skill Factory, man. What the hell is this place?
It has one of those names where immediately your mind goes to, that's not a school, that can't be a school. The Skill Factory is like,
It could be a school.
they yeah they do have I guess an academic program. It's mostly an online, and this is not that uncommon for prep schools these days, or charter schools, prep schools, to have a mostly online curriculum. um, and then their schedule is shaped in a way that gives these guys a ton of basketball training. I think the idea is, if you're in their academic program, you're probably going to be a Division I basketball player. That's your goal. So the idea is to get as much basketball work in as possible, in addition to meeting academic requirements for college basketball.
This sounds a lot like a European football academy.
It really is, and I mean, I think a lot of these
Basic education focused on the sporting aspect.
the first ones of these to kind of pop up in the U.S. were places like IMG, where and they have a whole slate of sports.
IMG is a little bit more reputable.
It is, and that's what I mean. Like they do have it. It's a different calendar. It's a different kind of curriculum. It is centered around your sport, but at the same time, they consider themselves high-end academics. They do have on-site instruction, but as things have kind of blown up online, and not to mention as charter schools have proliferated, as laws have changed in a lot of states that makes that easy to happen, they've kind of combined those things. So you have people opening schools that are kind of centered around traveling athletic programs, and then they farm out their online coursework. Now, according to Joel Hall, he said that that former NCAA employees run the organization that is helping, with these kids be academically eligible and everything. I would like to think they're getting decent coursework and test prep and everything like that.
It's kind of like similar if you follow tennis, in like the 90s, you heard about the Bollettieri Academy, similar type stuff.
Yeah.
Some board, some don't. Like,
Yeah, that's
I
right.
don't know, it's just different.
Yeah, and I mean, the problem is there's been such
A
like
black
a
eye.
rush, but there's it's kind of the Wild West in a lot of these things,
Yes.
where it's not the best regulated market. So there's, your mileage may vary depending on which school. We've seen some of these open and close, things disappear. The guy who is the headmaster of the school is the principal, is the teacher, is the basketball coach, and sometimes those guys disappear with money. You just never know. I'm not saying that's what the Skill Factory is. They actually have a ton of other basketball programs that aren't tied to academics at all. AAU teams, individual and team and group instruction. It's a whole slate of basketball centric work, but the academic part of it can really be a wide range of things at these schools, and it's just something to always be aware of, I think.
A little note for the women's basketball team. Not much has come out lately news-wise, but Coach Tillett is holding an open practice in Chalk Talk for area coaches. It's actually Sunday, October 16th from 10 a.m. to 12:30. So, I mean, if you're a high school coach that happens to listen to us, potentially reach out to the athletic department. But it's interesting. It's nice that she's really trying to embrace the high school coaches.
Yeah, that's great. She's been really good about getting in contact with all of them, and really building the relationship between the program and the local regional high school community. And this one is not just high school, it's coaches of all levels, like you said. So I mean, this is if you're coaching at any level, I think there's probably something in this for you.
A little more altruistic to include all levels.
Sure.
Pete, you know what else is altruistic? My love for salsa, baby.
I don't know if that's altruistic. I think
I have no idea what altruistic means anyway.
I think it's probably more selfish than altruistic in your case, but that's fine. Be as selfish as you want, because we are sponsored by Two Men in a Garden.
The sponsorship of our podcast is altruistic in a lot of ways, because it's not about like, I could have, got like a Bitcoin wallet or something. You know what I mean? Like it could have, or a Bitcoin, whatever you call those. Like it could have been a scam that we sponsor the show with. But no, we love salsa, so we talk about salsa.
It's just good, honest stuff made by good, honest people.
Yes.
in the St. Louis area, on shelves in the market, and available to ship anywhere in the continental U.S., which is a big deal for me because I don't make it home to St. Louis as much as I would like to. And I'm telling you, this stuff hits the spot. Zach and I have already told you, every once in a while we kind of dump out our jar and give it a hit with the blender. Drop an immersion blender in there, whatever your style is, to kind of smooth it out a little bit. The other thing I like to do is every once in a while I need a little hotter than hot, or if I'm in a less spicy mood, I need something a little milder. I'll blend together the medium and hot, or the extra hot and the hot, to kind of, it's not the top tier, but it's like just a half notch down. And it's great. Like I've toyed around with it enough, and I've bought enough of their stuff now that I can kind of find that sweet spot. And I would encourage you guys to do the same. Honestly, buy a few of them, because you've got the same general flavor profile. A lot of salsas, if you go from, the hottest level to the mildest level, they're changing.
Mm-hmm.
This is our tomatillo salsa that's mild. This is our habanero that's extra hot. So they're completely changing the base peppers and even the color and everything like that. It's not the case here. It's not. Yeah, it's totally simple. You can kind of do like I do, and blend them up and come up with your own heat level. So I would encourage you to buy multiple jars of this stuff across multiple heat levels, and you can do that at basically any grocery store in the St. Louis area now, or go to twomeningarden.com.
The women's soccer team, Pete, I mean, this team is, I don't know if the A10 can deal with them this year.
I wonder if there's going to be a situation like St. Thomas in D3 that gets basically kicked out of D3. Like, you're too good, you have to go up. And then they just jump to D1. I'm wondering if this team, maybe at some point they'll get too good for the A10 and we'll just get bumped up into the NWSL or something like that.
We don't want to be in the NWSL from what I've heard in the news.
No, yeah, not right now. And
Uh,
actually, Coach Shields did have some stuff to say about that apparently as well. And there's an article out there, and I know that's not in the notes. I just threw that out there, but
yeah.
yeah, but you could
Don't get
find
me
that.
started on the U.S. Women's National Team and how they spent the last 5 years complaining about their contract, only to let this thing sit around and not do anything about it. Never mind. Number 12 in the United Soccer Coaches Poll, down from 11. And this is something that I worry about because honestly, they've built up all this goodwill and all these great results. And what happens if, God forbid, we go and play Dayton and drop a tough game on the road or tie on the road? Do the pollsters just decide to say, "Hey, tough shit"?
I am worried about the same thing. And I mean, like at this point, we're at the tier of the rankings where, yeah, I mean, we could probably, if we drop a game, they're gonna drop, obviously. But I'm more concerned about the RPI,
Yeah.
which is actually a bigger factor of what goes into seeding. And right now, that is number 17 as of October 2nd. And I don't know, and I'm gonna have to check, Zach, if
Should conference schedule play into RPI?
oh, that's a tough question.
Like
I,
I think it should positively affect like conference RPI should like positively affect it, but I don't think negatively. Like I think
hmm.
that would be a good way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so hard because so much of it is based on strength of schedule, and
Yes.
the fact of the matter is you're just not getting the same strength of schedule in
Yeah.
certain conferences. I don't know what the answer there is, but I do know I just checked that they have not updated it since October 2nd when SLU was number 17. So this is really the challenge now for SLU in terms of NCAA tournament seeding, because the next highest A10 team you already mentioned is Dayton at 49, and then the other three
And they're
remaining.
gonna drop.
That's right. Yeah, and we'll get to that. But the other three remaining opponents that we play, besides Dayton, are number 50, number 227, and number 254. So there's not a whole lot SLU can do about that. They just have to decisively win these games.
Yeah, and they did that this Sunday, Pete. They played UMass, and apparently the announcers called the game from the Mullins Center. I don't know if maybe they like remotely called it. I don't know what is happening over there. We reached out to Stu Ledecky. I call him Sludecki because it's never mind. But I don't know what that meant, but I thought it was wild. A super high press from UMass in this game really befuddled the Billikens for the first part.
Yeah, and it paid off because SLU didn't score in the first half. I mean, as you wrote, they dominated early, but UMass was a capable opponent here and really had that press working for them.
Yeah, they were scary in that like when they would get opportunities, you felt like they could put it away, and they had an opportunity early to get on the board first, and luckily, or fortunately, I should say, definitely not lucky. Emily Piricelli came up big and made a great kick save early in that first half. As you mentioned, all three goals were in the second half. Pete, run us down.
Yeah, and before I do, I mean, SLU did have, as I understand it, a good chance too. Gaby put one off the crossbar,
Mm,
but
absolute rocket. But that was I think that was late in the first or early second.
okay, all right. So both teams had their chances to get on the board before they actually did, and the first one was in the 65th minute. Um, Maybe the deepest SLU has ever gone, aside from the Notre Dame game that they lost. But it feels like this is the deepest they've ever gone into a game this season before scoring the first goal. And somebody correct me on that if I'm wrong. But 65th minute, Lindsay Heckel from Anna Walsh. It was a corner kick that hit a head in the middle, right in front of the goal, bounced up, and then Heckel got her head on it on the far post and put it away.
These seem like they happen once every two games. These
Yeah.
kind of header scrambles, and Stu mentioned kind of he described it in his tweet. Stu Durando, that is. It seems like these are pretty common in women's soccer.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, it does feel like we've seen a lot of them this season, and when they're not doing that kind of short corner thing they do sometimes, it really feels like a scrum in front of the net. And SLU upping the level of its sort of athleticism, as we've talked about several times this year, means that they're winning those more often than not, which has been key.
Yeah, I've
Um,
seen on a couple of occasions, you mentioned corner kicks, and I've seen a couple times where SLU's opponent have done kind of trickery esque training ground plays. Hit a hard low cross and try to flick it on. Basically, control the chaos.
yeah,
Control
putting
how.
multiple players in a very defined motion.
Yeah.
You're right. I mean, we have seen a lot of that. I think we're going to continue to see more of that kind of stuff too as
I
this
love
team.
it. I mean, I love, like, I've always said I'd love to see more. I mean, as much as I hate short corners in college soccer because I think its defenses are not that good, and I think you can, college soccer on a lot of levels is chaos. It really is, and there's a lot of broken plays that lead to goals. It's not this
Mm,
beautiful ticky tacky build up, uh, and. But I'd love to see more kind of that indoor soccer influence on free kicks, where you kind
yeah.
of, have somebody near the wall that you play it to and they kind of redirect it to somebody. I don't know. But I love those kind of, that kind of training ground nonsense.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I mean, I think we're just going to see more of it because uh, they're going to need to resort to trick plays and
Yeah.
gimmick defenses and things like that as SLU dominates this conference.
Yeah.
81st minute, Sophia Stram from Walsh. This time, another corner, another header. It was kind of hard to tell, Zach, if Stram hit this cleanly because a UMass defender was right there. It honestly looked like an own goal on the broadcast. But Stram got credit for it. They didn't call it an own goal, so I guess it was her that got up there.
They haven't been giving own goals. If you recall, the goal in the men's game against Loyola was credited to John Klein.
That's right. Yeah, that's
So
right.
I don't know if the NCAA acknowledges own
Oh
goals.
wow. Yeah. Okay. That's Now I'm trying to think of whether we have seen one this year or not. I want
Or we've seen them. It's just whether or not
right. Have
it's
we seen
been.
them in the box score as
Yes.
such?
Yes. So maybe
Yeah.
if BK's listening out there, Mickey, he can fill us in on that, or anybody really. Tweet at us. Drop. You know what? Comment down below like a proper YouTube video.
That's right.
Um,
Or just shout at your podcast as you're
yes.
jogging or
Yell at
doing
the
dishes.
road, or yeah, not
Yes.
the road, the radio. Pete, what happened in the 89th minute?
Got one more right before things closed. Caroline Kelly from Abby Miller. Miller played a really nice ball up to Kelly, and she was left one-on-one with the keeper. And that, if you are a goalkeeper in the Atlantic 10, is not a position you want to be in. Caroline Kelly tucked it just under her to the right, her left, keeper's left. And it was such a smooth, confident finish, and just felt like a really nice icing on a really good half for SLU to put this one away 3-0 after not getting on the board for over 2/3 of that game.
Yeah, the shots were 21-6 SLU. Shots on goal 14-3 SLU. And I really thought for the second game in a row, the Billikens they dealt with a really tough goalkeeper and a
Yeah,
really
that's right.
impressive goalkeeper. I mean, this game again could have been 5-6 nothing if it were not for the UMass goalkeeper. She played a fantastic game.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
Corners were 9-2 Billikens, and the fouls were even at 9. SLU had the only yellow card from Sydney Beach in the 42nd minute. Hannah Larson made her triumphant return to the Billikens. She played 33 minutes.
Yeah, really nice to see her name there again in the lineup, and a big relief for a lot of fans who were kind of wondering when and if we'd see her again this season.
Yeah, and I think we got a little bit of an indication
Yeah.
prior to, I think last podcast we mentioned it. Just to kind of go down the standings here, the Billikens sit alone atop the conference at 6-0. Dayton dropped their game to VCU today and are now 6-1. As I mentioned, VCU slots in at number 3, Davidson 4, Duquesne 5, UMass 6, St. Joe's, Fordham, Rhode Island, LaSalle, Loyola, Chicago surprisingly dropped
Yeah.
way down there. I thought they were going to be a little more competitive this year
Yeah,
for the
me too.
top 3. You got George Washington, George Mason, Richmond, and then St. Bonaventure bringing up the rear. Next game, Thursday the 13th versus Rhode Island. They will get that half game, I guess, that they're currently. Dayton is off this during the week,
Right.
and the Billikens will play Thursday the 13th versus Rhode Island. So they'll make that game up on Dayton. Sunday the 16th, as you mentioned earlier, at Dayton. This is a huge game.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, even though Dayton lost today, this is the other, or it's Sunday as you listen to this. This is the other top team in the conference. And it's also the last road game of the regular season for SLU. And hopefully, if things go well here, hopefully the last road game they played for a long time.
Yeah.
It has a chance to be the last road game until later rounds of the NCAA tournament. Dayton, just lost to VCU for the first time. SLU's in charge of their own destiny, and given the home field, the campus site location for the conference tournament in the first few rounds of the NCAA tournament, this is huge for SLU to take care of business on the road. Really, one more time, could be tremendously meaningful for this team to get a first round bye in the NCAA tournament, then get a home game. You really are in charge of your own destiny here, and I think this team can do it.
There's a bit of a recruiting update on the women's soccer team. Pete, why don't you tell us a little bit more about it?
We talked about Stu Durando's article a couple weeks ago on Katie Shields, and kind of buried in that article was the fact that SLU had 10 2023 commitments. I was able to find a partial list, I think up to 7 of them, but not a full list. And he said something like progress was being made in 2024. Well, Zach, this week they picked up what I think is their 4th commitment in this class. Audrey Smith from Fort Zumwalt South, and Scott Gallagher is her club team. She joins her high school teammate Ashley Miller, who's also a 2024 player from Fort Zumwalt South, but plays for JB Marine Club. Ulla Sharp from Edwardsville and the St. Louis Developmental Academy, and then Hope Kim from the Kansas City area. Blue Valley Southwest High School and Sporting Blue Valley in the ECNL, which is kind of like the EYBL, really of club soccer. Fort Zumwalt South, to kind of put this in perspective for those who might not know, St. Charles side of the river soccer, Zach. Fort Zumwalt South has won 2 straight Missouri Class 3 state titles, and Smith had a hat trick in each of them. Just to remind you, given that she is a 2024 player, she did that as a freshman and a sophomore. So it sounds like she's a natural goal scorer, and that's something that's something you can never overlook. And it's a shame it's going to be a couple more seasons before we actually see her, but they're not just making progress in 2024, they're really building the future.
Speaking of people doing big things in their freshman years, Patrick Schulte did a thing over on the men's side.
Led the Columbus Crew 2 to the MLS Next Pro Championship after defeating St. Louis City 4-1. And there was a great little shot of him on Twitter in the locker room. They've got all of the champagne or Budweisers or whatever spraying into the air, and he's the one holding the trophy. And we already talked about how he was the goalkeeper of the year in that league, and now he's got a championship to go along with it. It seems like he's done everything he can possibly do in his development plan for them. And I got to imagine we're going to be seeing him at the top club in relatively short order.
I'm sure that photo doesn't hold a candle to his interview on our show.
I mean, he's got to make that his profile picture, just a screenshot of that. That's when you've made it.
Yeah. The men's soccer team unfortunately dropped a 3-2 decision Wednesday the 5th. First of all, the annoying nature of this one being that it was not streamed on ESPN Plus. And Pete, I gotta say, I think like they give out $10,000 to every school in the A10 to improve their streaming abilities. If you can't stream a game that's on campus, you need to pay, you need to be fined.
Yeah, give us our money back.
Give about $100 per game you can't stream, and it has to be on campus. because obviously SLU would be screwed with field hockey.
Right.
But and I think most of them don't even stream field hockey. But Pete, run us down the goals in this one and the disappointing ending.
Yeah, so this one, Rhode Island had an own goal with 23 seconds left, and I guess we gotta look at the box score, by the
Yep,
way,
I'm
on
on
that
it.
one.
I'm on it.
um, to give SLU a 2-2 tie. We were down one, and then they came back and scored just 13 seconds later, meaning
Wow.
10 seconds left on the clock to win it. So it was a really tough finish for SLU, being yo-yoed all over the place there. Rhode Island got on the board first. Isaac Oistisi, I don't know if I'm saying that even close to right, assisted by Patrick Agmayang. He threaded it into the lower right corner in the 10th minute. 20th minute, 10 minutes later, Agmayang himself gets on the board, assisted by Edvin Axelsen, who gave him a long run, crossed the ball in, and then Agmayang was there to finish it. So SLU's down 2-0 at halftime. 59th minute, CJ Coppola, assisted by Lane Warrington, finished it backwards off his heel, really nifty. And then yeah, we talked about the last minute, Zach, that own goal, and then Rhode Island comes down 13 seconds later. Patrick Grishevsky, assisted by Kevin Castaneda, just ricocheted it in off the goalpost, a few inches the other way, and this was going to be a tie. Really, really frustrating. And you're on mute, so unmute yourself because I know you were
Yeah,
doing a little
yeah.
research there.
Yeah, no, it's labeled as a team own goal, which is
Okay.
interesting. I wonder if it has to do. Again, neither of us saw the goal, but you wonder if it has something to do with whether the ball was touched by a Billiken before a whistle. Well, I guess it's SLU team, right?
Hmm.
Okay, so they do award own goals apparently. So,
They do,
we
but
were
I
yeah.
guess it just has to. Yeah, I think
Loyola was an own goal too.
you're on the right track though. Like it's like maybe two people going up for a header is not going to be called an own
Yeah,
goal
that's right.
kind of
That's right.
thing. Yeah, there's got to be a little more to it. But yeah, anyway, put your pens down. You don't need to write us letters now. We've got it figured out.
Yes. Shots were 15-11 SLU in this one. Shots on goal 9-7 SLU. Billiken led in corners 7-3. Fouls were 20-16 SLU. This was a big opportunity for SLU RPI wise. Rhode Island was 26 coming into this game. SLU is 35th as of October 7th. Rhode Island's a good team.
Yeah, they are.
Um, the at large possibility, Pete, what are we looking at?
It's a little bit smaller with this one. Rhode Island's up to 25th in the RPI. And like you said, we're down to 35th, which doesn't do you in, but you look at the rest of the schedule. You've got a couple teams around the 50 area, a couple around the 100 to 110 area, and we've also got IUPUI in there at 190. So that's one you really have to take care of business in. So, you know, just we can't afford really to lose anymore is what it comes down to. If you're at 35th, everybody's below you coming up. It's not gonna do you any favors to lose to a team who's in the kind of 100 section, and those two teams around 50, you really got to win those.
Yeah, uh, they did pick up a win against a not so great Fordham team, 2-1 win on Saturday the 8th. Watching this one is wild. Fordham has a very weird soccer setup.
Yeah, but I mean, being in the Bronx, I think they can kind of be forgiven a little bit for their real estate footprint.
Yeah, it's a baseball, soccer, football stadium. We've seen it from the baseball side before, but I can't remember noticing it from the soccer side. Um, So, just to kind of explain, the soccer field covers left and center field, extending past the third base dugout. The corner flag is pretty much parallel to the back wall of the dugout, and Fordham's bench occupies the area between second and third. So there's like the benches and then so much space. It's so odd.
It's weird too because I know we've played there, and I don't remember it looking like that before. Because Fordham
They
Fordham has
could
actually
really,
been they've been the other program that's been the class of this league
Yeah.
before SLU has kind of gotten back on track. Fordham was the team to beat in this conference, and we've had some heartbreaking exits in the A10 tournament to them. I didn't remember the field looking like this. I don't know
They
what's
could
going on.
really do with like a removable fence.
Oh, for sure.
Like something you could trot out every so often. But it was a 2-1 win, Pete. Tell us how it happened.
Yeah, 2-1 win. And SLU got on the board first this time. CJ Coppola in the 12th minute, assisted by John Klein. Klein had the shot, and then Coppola put back the rebound. It seems like Zach, there may have been some referee issues on this one, though.
Yeah, moderate shenanigans, I think, at least from the Fordham perspective. Wilkins get the turnover, and a ref got in the way, or the ref, the man in the middle, gets in the way of the recovering Fordham player. So, I mean, giving us a little bit of numbers going the other way. And then Fordham players were looking for an offside on the rebound. I don't know. It could have been. Either way, the goal stands.
Yeah, it stands. And offside on a rebound, I think is so. Ugh, I
It's
don't
lame.
like that at all.
It really is lame.
It's lame. I kind of feel like a rebound erases it.
Yes, I couldn't agree more.
Until possession is reestablished.
Yes.
I think that's
Yes.
yeah. But it was a long time. It was 60 minutes before anyone got on the board again, and this was SLU again in the 72nd minute. This time it was Grady Easton, assisted by Christian Buendia. He played a nice long cross to Easton, who just headed it in to put SLU in good position. Fordham did scare them late, though. 88th minute, Florian Delatiogo. I'm guessing maybe that's.
You're doing great, sweetie.
Maybe it's Turkish or something. It kind of sounds like, it reminds me of Turkaloo. But anyway, assisted by Nathan
Context
Symes and
clues.
Daniel Espleta. Good ball movement, and then he just finished the through ball. But it was the 88th minute, and they just didn't have time to even it up after that. Why don't you run us through the stats here, Zach?
Shots were 18-10 Fordham. Shots on goal 6-5 Fordham. Corners 5-2 Fordham. Fouls were 26-5 Billikens. How does that happen? I don't know. SLU had 5 yellow cards. Fordham had 2. This was almost like a mirror image of the Rhode Island game in a way, stats wise.
Yeah, it was, except for that fouls thing. Like you said, I don't know how that happens. It's very rare that you see a team genuinely out foul another team at a 5-1 rate.
Like 21 fouls.
Very, very strange. Very strange. But it's a key win, and SLU really needs to get hot now.
So much for that Bronx toughness. The standings are as follows. Duquesne leads the league right now. I don't remember them hardly ever leading this league or being that big of a mover and shaker. They're at 3-0-2. The Billikens right behind them, 3-1-1. Dayton is 2-0-3 in third. You've got LaSalle, UMass, VCU, Fordham, St. Joe's, George Washington. There's that Rhode Island game. Loyola, Chicago, Davidson, George Mason, and Bonaventure. Next up, Tuesday the 11th, they've added a home game against Blackburn College, presumably to make up for the UIC game. Blackburn is an NCAA Division III program playing in the St. Louis Intercollegiate Athletic Conference.
Yeah, they played an exhibition this year against a school called Moody Bible College, which I think basketball fans will know the
isn't
name
that
of that
what we
one.
call the Old Testament? The Moody Bible?
I'm not going to touch that one at all.
Hey, he was a vengeful guy in the Old Testament, man. He was moody.
That's all right. Send all your notes to Zach on that one. And then they host George Washington on Saturday the 15th. Yeah. I mean, this just has to be one of those where they wanted to fill out a date. I mean, like we said, they lost the UIC date. I don't know why Blackburn. I don't know why midseason.
Soccer's interesting though, because there's so many players out there that can play soccer. Like international kids that didn't make it overseas. They want to come to college in the United States. There's there's so much talent to go
Hmm.
around in the world of soccer that Division III isn't that big of a drop. Any place in college really isn't that big of a drop. And NAIA going further is sometimes better than Division II. So this is
Yeah.
interesting. You're not going to get a rollover, I don't think. And I don't know anything about Blackburn, but when you play Division III, it's not always a rollover like it would be in basketball.
Yeah, and I don't know much about Blackburn either. I actually just looked it up right now. So about 600 undergraduates. Tiny, tiny, tiny. It's about halfway between St. Louis and Springfield, in Carlinville, Illinois. So not too far away, but really small. And even though,
Right.
as you say, sometimes these schools can be surprisingly good every once in a while in soccer because you wind up with the right mix of internationals or whatever. That's a small school. I'd
It's
be
nice of them to name that town after George.
it really is. I think
Yeah.
they did rename it a few years ago. I don't know what it was before.
Volleyball, guys, I tried to tell you. I really tried to tell you. I feel vindicated, Peter.
You feel vindicated, but you don't feel any better, do you?
No, I don't. I didn't want this to be true, but
No.
it's true, unfortunately. Billikens played Loyola Chicago at home and then went to D.C. to play George Washington. They dropped a 3-1 contest to Loyola on the 4th, 23-25, 25-21, 15-25, and 11-25. I really just don't understand these score lines where the game is like together, like
Yeah.
it's a competitive game, and then the Billikens just like fade into the blackness. I don't know if it's I like again. I went in on this team last year because all they had was Maya Taylor, and I think on some level that's been the issue with Kent Miller's tenure is just not enough depth to where if Maya Taylor's having an off game or a team figures her out, or now with now I think it's she's the international player. I'm trying to think of her name off the top of my head. I can't remember. But I mean, if well, in this one it was Henkin, right? Henkin's letting kills. When people figure her out, they don't really have anybody up behind them.
Hmm.
Henkin with 13 kills in this one. Opperly 32 assists. Rogers 16 digs. Loyola and Davidson are the last two undefeated teams in the conference. The games against George Washington on back-to-back dates, the 7th and the 8th. This one really, this sucks. This
Well,
really sucks.
but it's the exact same pattern you just
Yes.
described. I mean, here's SLU decisively winning the first two, 25-16, 25-14, and then they turn around and lose three straight.
And with
22-25, hard fought game. But then 10-25 and 12-15, 10-25 in the fourth game. I mean, come on.
I don't know is that and what really pisses me off is you watch the stream of the game and old boy is sitting on the bench like this and you're like,
Yeah, as your team
dude,
is
sit
falling apart.
up,
Yeah.
do something. I don't get it. Yeah, like you said, they lost three straight in this one. Hankin 17 kills, Opperly 36 assists, Rogers 34 digs. GW had 13 blocks to SLU's 5, and that's kind of what I talk about when I think teams just figure us out. We don't adjust, and
Hmm.
I don't know where that. I don't know if that's. I mean, at this level, at this point, you got to say it's a coaching issue. But is it a coaching issue where Kent Miller's not making the right move, or he hasn't explained the move the right way, or his team just doesn't want to make the change in which he brought in these players, and it's his fault. Uh, on the 8th, 3-1 loss to George Washington. Billikens dropped the first two sets, 23-25, 21-25. Win the third set, 25-17, but then dropped the fourth, 23-25. Henkin, 18 kills, Opperly. Career high, 57 assists. What?
Yeah, it's a big number.
Rogers, 19 digs. Next up, they will host Davidson Friday and Saturday on the 14th and 15th. Godspeed. the way Davidson's playing, because
Yeah.
right now they sit alone at the top, or tied with Loyola Chicago, 7-0 at the top of the conference. Dayton's in third place, 5-2. George Washington also 5-2, and SLU is fifth in this conference. This is danger zone. This is territory that the Billikens haven't been in probably 10 years.
Well, and it's also true of the team they're tied in fifth with, VCU, because VCU and Dayton, who's in third, are typically the toast of this conference. You add in Loyola Chicago, and it's already a stronger conference. But clearly, Davidson, George Washington, there are teams that have gotten better in this league, and it's a shame to be in the middle of the league right now, watching other teams pass you by.
Absolutely. Like you said, VCU's there right behind St. Louis at 4-3. Well, same. Fordham, George Mason, Rhode Island, and Duquesne bringing up the rear. Pete, run us down the swimming and diving action against Truman State on October 7th, and then we'll get these people out of here.
Yeah, they went up to Kirksville. The women won 279.5 to 29.5. I don't know if they say a half or 0.5 in swimming. I don't know.
6 to 1, half a dozen the other.
Emily Leonard was a triple winner in this one. Won the 500 meter free, the 1,000 meter free, and was in the 400 meter free relay. And then Maggie McPherson was also she was a double winner, not a triple winner. 100 meter backstroke, and then also was in the 400 meter medley relay. The men won this one 148 to 56, and Jedrick Gamilla won the 100 meter breaststroke and helped win the 400 meter medley relay. The only double winner on the men's side. Next up, swimming and diving has McKendree. They'll be up at McKendree on the 21st of October.
Well, that wraps up what we have, Pete. And do you have anything personal you want to drop in here before we get out of here? Not that I think you do, but I know the way I said that was I expected you to say something, but I don't.
No, and I don't either. Just I think I said last week to go look at the men's basketball schedule.
And I meant to have you do that at the outset of this episode, because I had somebody text me and ask me when like the times are going to be announced. And I was like, you clearly didn't listen to the entire show.
Yeah, right. Somebody, that's how we keep you honest. We got to put like a little trivia question or something at the end, make sure people go all the way. But yeah, there are more up now, and we're getting close to about half of the game time. I think we're probably
a lot of the A10 ones are up, and then Memphis
starting to come
is
in.
up.
It's actually the ones that are coming in the last are home games. So it's home games are the least.
Isn't that why we
figured
built
out so far? One would think, but I got to imagine those are all going to come in around the same time.
Yeah.
And this thing will be pretty close to wrapped up.
Speaking of wrapping up, that wraps up the week that was in Billiken Athletics. Follow us on Twitter at Midtown Mad Pod, at Peter is a tweeter, at Zach Miller MMP, on Instagram at Midtown Mad Pod. Of course, we appreciate any and all suggestions, comments, criticisms, only constructive, that you might have for the show. Drop us a line anywhere. Email, Twitter, Instagram. Our DMs are always open. Go subscribe to the show on all platforms if you haven't already. Drop us 5 stars as well and a review. As always, Pete, go Bills.
Go Bills.